This gentleman right sitting next to me is a real, truly visionary artist. He has a talent of taking an idea, presenting it to people, filling that idea with all kinds of images, and eventually creating a story, writing a book, and then making a movie out of it. That's the whole package. That is wonderful. How did you get started doing that?
You know, I was lucky. I wrote stories when I was a kid just for the fun of it. I acted a little bit and directed a little bit of theater in college. And when I got out of college, I was just working in hospitals and factories and sending short stories off. But then in the summers, I would act in a summer stock theater company. So there was always this kind of combination of writing, making a living, which was separate from the writing, and acting and directing.
Well, I got a question for our audience. Do you have any idea who I'm talking to? This is John Sayles, who is among the best storytellers of the 20th and 21st century, because his stories get you to think. And when they're done, you're still thinking about the issues long after the event is over. So what's your thought process? How do you get to do that?
You know, most stories that I do start with me knowing enough about a subject that I can get interested in it, but not enough that I don't want to know more. So it starts with questions like interests. A Moment in the Sun started probably when I stumbled across a phrase that said the Philippine-American War. And I'd never heard of the Philippine-American War, you know, and I said, what was that? And how come I don't know about it? So from that kind of seed of what's going on here, I start to look into it, and eventually I'll find something that looks like a story that needs telling that I haven't seen before.
And then what happens next? Who do you talk to next? Where do you get the money for it? You know, like how does...
Basically, I write everything first. So, you know, sometimes I start out writing it as fiction, and I say, you know, this would be better as a movie, and sometimes it works the other way around. For fiction, you don't need money. You just eventually you hope to find a publisher. Movies, unfortunately, the last 3 or 4 movies we've made has been all money I made. That I invested in my own movies as a screenwriter for hire in Hollywood, because I also am just you know, an employee screenwriter, and I don't recommend it, but that's how we got the last 3 or 4 made.
And the money you make from that, you can then create your own films.
If we keep the budget low enough. Amigo, our most recent movie, cost $1.7 million. Which, if you write a lot of screenplays for people, you know, you can cover that. So obviously, we're not going to be making $20 to $100 million movies. I'd be writing from now until the year 3000.
Yeah, because I think once you get into that category, you have the suits from the studios who want more fire, more shootings, more killings, more special effects, and they take away from the whole movie.
Maybe they take away from it unless you do it really well, but that may not be what the story you want to tell is about. So a lot of times I have to think about what kind of money am I going to have to make this movie while I'm writing it. So you have to say, what can I do well for $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, and what couldn't I do well? So let's leave that out. So the book, A Moment in the Sun, is like a 5-year miniseries. You know, it expands that.
How many pages is it?
It's about 950 some pages.
Wow.
Yeah, it's big. And whereas the movie is more like a snapshot of the same period.
Which did you enjoy doing more, writing the book or doing the movie? You
know, it's a funny thing. I enjoy them both kind of equally, but they're very different in that writing a book, there's just you. And the good thing is you're basically in control of the universe. You want the sun to shine, you say, oh, the sun was shining, it's shining.
Right.
On a movie, you want the sun to shine, it's up to the sky. You can't control those things, but on a movie, there's more than just you. You have a composer, you have set decorators and production designers and costumers and actors, all of whom can do things that you can't do. And you direct their talents. So you know, one is a more kind of personal process, and the other is a much more, even though I'm the writer, director, and editor, it's a very social process.
Well, you've had some very unusual experiences happening in your life, and one of them that I've always hoped I'd have an opportunity to ask you about is the Genius Award.
Yeah. which I had not heard of at the time that I got it. It was, I think it must have been about 1983 or 4. And somebody called me. I was in the middle of a sound mixing session, which costs about $500 a minute.
Wow.
So it's like, who's calling me during this thing? You know, this is wasting time. They said, you've won this thing called the MacArthur Award. And I said, okay, great. Bye, you know, and I didn't even know that there was any money attached to it. And they said, well, can we give your number to the New York Times? They may want to talk to you about it. So about 2 hours later, a guy from the New York Times called up, and I said, what is this thing? Because he wanted to know what I thought about winning it. And I said, I don't know, what is it? And at that time, they gave you, it was based on your age at that time. So I got $34,000 for 5 years, tax-free, which I recommend to everybody. You know.
That sounds like a great deal. How do I apply for that job?
Well, that's the other thing is you don't apply for it.
I know.
You can't apply for it. And I know a couple other, Bill Irwin, the kind of performer who's been in one of my movies, a couple other people I've met who are ex-geniuses just like me. The minute the money stops, you get amazingly stupider.
That's very funny. When you found, when you realized, I won this award, and now the New York Times is calling you up, and other, I remember seeing you on TV, you know, being interviewed, and I think that was the first time I became aware and connected the dots to the return of the Secaucus 7 and some of the other things. I say, yeah, this guy deserves the award. So.
Yeah, you know what was great about it at that time, I was editing a movie called Brother from Another Planet, very, very low budget, didn't have much money, and I was about to have to quit editing and go take a couple writing jobs to afford the rental of the editing machine. And I got that award, and I could, oh, okay, I don't have to take another writing job for now, I can just keep editing because we got the rent covered. And that's basically what the award's for, is to free people up.
It really goes along with a philosophy that I have, that all you have to do in life is get up in the morning, show up, and follow your gut, and then life is going to happen the way it's supposed to.
Well, as Woody Allen said, showing up is 80%. You know? The other 20 is, I think, not thinking too far in the future. Is not thinking about what could go wrong or whatever, but saying, so what do I want to do here? You know, for instance, this novel, A Moment in the Sun, it got to be, I didn't plan it to be 950 pages.
Yeah.
I just kept writing it because it was interesting. And then, when I was done with it, I said, oh, maybe I should try to get this thing published. If I didn't like it when I read it through, I would say, well, that was interesting, and I'll just put it aside, and maybe someday I'll be able to do a better job on it.
Well, do you think that it might be developed into like a mini-series?
Oh, if somebody wanted to put up all the money to make it a mini, it would make a great mini-series. And as I said, it could last for 5 years. There's so much story in it. Well,
within the mini-series, might there be a part for a small actor with a handlebar mustache?
Oh, sure, sure.
When can I audition?
I think in the book there's at least 30-some characters who get at least one chapter in their point of view.
Wow.
So 30-some fairly major characters, and there's hundreds and hundreds of minor characters. So we'll need a lot of people.
Well, let me ask you another question. What's it like being John Sayles?
Busy, which is good. You know, right now I'm on a tour of Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, doing some openings for the movie Amigos, some readings for A Moment in the Sun, the book. I always have a job to support all that stuff, so I'm almost always writing something for somebody else. And that's interesting, you know, the things don't always get made. When they do get made, they're not always good.
So what's in the future?
Oh boy, it's kind of always a question mark after we finish a movie whether we're going to be able to raise the money to make another one. I've written a couple things. I've written one movie that's set in the Tasmanian penal colony in 1820.
Okay.
It's a cool movie. And I wrote a movie based on the case of Ethel and Julius Rosenberg in the 50s. And I've got a couple other things written that who knows if we'll ever get to make them.
Well, do you have a fear that a lot of people in the business have, that you're only as good as the last thing you've done, and if it doesn't live up to your expectations, nobody's going to fund you on the next project or anything like that?
It's been so hard for us to get funded from the very beginning.
Really?
That it's just not a fear, it's a reality. It really, we've never had that breakthrough movie that went platinum. And when you have that, you should make 3 movies right away before any one of them doesn't make any. That's what people try to do. They try to sign up right away and get their dream projects done, or as many as they can get done. But basically, nobody's been funding us for years.
Yeah, well,
so
I don't get the feeling that you do this for the money. I think you do it because you at the end of the day, you love what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely, and very lucky. You know, I used to, as I always say, I used to work for a living. Jobs that were okay, but you didn't get excited about them in the morning. And you still put in 40, 50 hours a week. I'm putting in more hours a week now, but I'm doing something I want to, and that's kind of a definition of success, I would say.
Now, if there was somebody out there watching you and feeling inspired by what you've accomplished, what would you recommend to them?
Figure out a way to do what you want to do. You know, it may not be on the scale that you want to do. You know, you may have, oh, I'd like to direct a $50 million movie. Well, maybe you have to start directing a $50,000 movie.
Yeah.
But you'll learn a lot. You know, you'll meet people who you may want to work with again if you've got a story that could be done well for that. And if you're a writer, you just got to write. You know, you just and don't be so worried about whether it's any good while you're writing it. I mean, somebody once said that the only reason to write is to give yourself something to rewrite. You know, I've often written better dialogue here and just kept moving on and gone back and fixed it later.
Well, there's the formula, and if there are any young John Sayles in the audience, this is the man to watch because he's went through life with a passion for doing what he liked to do, and everything he's done is just great. So thank you very much.
You.